All right, we welcome you on in Tuesday, Locked On Syracuse Podcast, and it is your Clemson preview today. Tim, Leonard, and Tyler Aki to get you ready for the Tigers and another must-win game for Syracuse. They're pretty much all
How many do you
must-win.
get? How many do you get?
Well, they've lost 5 or 6 already, so hopefully this is the one that they actually win that is a must-win. But we'll document the Tigers, go into the keys to this one, prop shop, Dabbundo's digits, all our usual preview podcast stuff coming up next.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every single weekday. We're here with you guys. Only place for daily SU podcasts out there. And today's episode brought to you by Sonos. Experience the game like never before with Sonos Arc, the premium smart soundbar for TV, movies, music, gaming, and more. Visit Sonos.com to learn more. So Clemson is on the docket, late one, 9 p.m. on Tuesday night. And they're pretty much just what Clemson basketball has been for the last 6, 7, 8 years, it feels like now under Brad Brownell. They are 57 on KenPom, 10-7 overall, pretty much just a middle-of-the-pack ACC team that has usually played close games with Syracuse because Syracuse has been a middle-of-the-pack ACC team in the regular seasons, at least for the last 5, 6 years as well. The only difference I would say is this year's Clemson team is not defensive-minded. And when you go through their KenPom history, you usually see a 20, a 25 ranking next to Clemson's defense. This year, they've got the 86th ranked defense, according to KenPom, which is a little bit different stylistically.
Yeah, it's just a Clemson team, like you kind of said. Just another Clemson team here. Just a very mediocre group. A team that if you play them twice in a year and you're Syracuse, you probably split with them. Like that's just kind of the team that they are. And once again, they bring back a lot of players who you'll probably remember: PJ Hall, Alamir Dawes, Nick Honor. So there's a lot of familiarity, I think, with both of these teams from the past couple of seasons. And I think that's something that when you give Jim Boeheim a little bit more time to prepare, especially against guys that he's seen a lot of, that probably helps out Syracuse a little bit. You also have this game at home. I know the 9 o'clock tip isn't favorable for the locals. I always loved the 9 o'clock tips for when I was at school. Like you get that late game and get a little extra time to pregame and everything before you walk in through the dome doors. And I don't know, like I always loved it, but I get why people don't like it on the other hand. So we'll see what kind of crowd we get for this one, especially with no students on campus as well. It'll be interesting to see what the number is, especially after a loss. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there.
Yeah. And look, we say they're a typical Clemson team. They're mediocre. And I guess that is kind of a slight, but also we fully understand that Syracuse, if Clemson was doing a podcast like the Locked On Clemson podcast, would say the same thing about Syracuse, right? In the regular seasons, at least.
But the difference is Clemson walks in every single basketball season with pretty much no expectations. Like Syracuse walks in with, okay, can we get to a Final Four? Can we get into the second weekend? Like those are the expectations of the program as a whole for Syracuse basketball. Whereas Clemson, it's like, all right, can you get us to the spring game, right? Like we always joke about on this show, like, can football get us to basketball season? They say, can you get us to the spring game? Can you get us even to signing day sometimes? Oh, signing day is pushed up into December. Can you get us to the first signing day? Like that's the way that the Clemson basketball mentality is.
Yeah, and it's funny. So take a guess on this. What year do you think Brad Brownell is at Clemson now? What year coaching for him?
I was just thinking about this literally as we started the show. The first mention of Brad Brownell. He's been there a while now.
Yeah, it's sneaky long. So
is it double digits?
It's double digits.
Okay, I was going to guess like 8 or 9, but now that you've given me that double digit hint, I'll say 12 years.
Yeah, 12 years. Can you believe that? I mean, you never would have guessed that initially, right? Like,
no.
That's a long time.
Yeah. And what did we say? Okay, we've said with these coaches now that have gone up against the 2-3 zone a lot, they're starting to have a little more success. Like the first couple years, okay, maybe Syracuse had the upper hand, especially that first year in the ACC, albeit that was an extremely talented team as well. But once you have sort of the game plan, all the notes on what you want to do, how you want to attack this thing, Like we always talk about in the NCAA tournament, the 2-3 zone is the great equalizer because no one's played against it all year. Well, Brad Brownell has now had 9 years to prepare for this Syracuse 2-3 zone. He's gone up against it, and some years you're getting them twice. So maybe even 3 times too with an ACC tournament. I have to go back and look through the archives of that, but there's certainly some experience against it. And that's something that I think sort of plays into Clemson's favor. Like I pointed out something that plays into Syracuse's favor. I think this is something that definitely plays into Clemson's favor.
Right. So last 8 years, they've been above 500 overall record wise. They did have one good year where they made it to the Sweet 16 as a 5 seed in 2018. And they were, I believe, 4 seed in the ACC tournament that year. That was a good team with like Marquise Reed and just a veteran group. So, I mean, they don't have some of the veteran guys that they typically have, but PJ Hall has really stepped up this year. And like you said, it's not a slight against Brad Brownell. Like actually, he's done a decent job here. 3 NCAA tournament appearances in 11 years. Not great, but just one losing season at Clemson is pretty solid when it is a football school that's just looking to have, a couple decent years here or there in basketball. And that's pretty much what they've been.
Yeah, he's been the perfect football school coach. Like we talk about this with Mike Bray. Now, Mike Bray's a better coach than I think Brad Brownell is, but you just got to keep the ship afloat. No one's looking for anything splashy. A couple NCAA tournament appearances here or there are cool, but ultimately it's a football school. And you're always going to fly under the radar there, and it's not the worst thing in the world. It's a cushy job. That's for damn sure. Like Brad Brownell's got a lot of security, I think, with that job. But no, you're right. It's just about making sure everything goes smoothly with football. And I know the last year wasn't the smoothest for football, so maybe there's a little more pressure on Brad Brownell this year to give a little bit of a spark to the fan base.
Right. So 10-7 overall. Last 2 games for Clemson have not been good. They lost at Notre Dame by 16, and then they got up by 23 at home against Boston College. I was keeping tabs on that game, thinking, all right, as expected, they're going to beat BC. And they blew the 23-point lead, lost by 2 to the Eagles at home, who BC entered on a 5-game losing streak. And BC did not lead at any point in that game until they hit a 3 to go ahead with 26 seconds left. So that was a collapse that would even rival some of the ones that Syracuse has had.
I'm looking at the win probability chart from that game. It is a flatline Clemson for about pretty much flatline for about, I'd guess, like 30 minutes. Yeah. Then you see a little bit of a BC pulse start to form, and then boom, in like the final 2 minutes, it just shoots in favor of BC.
Yeah, that's one thing to lose a 23-point lead to anyone, and it's another thing to lose it to BC, a team that was really struggling to score and just struggling to beat anyone since they've gotten into the bulk of conference play here. They also won at Virginia by 17, and then they went on a little bit of a COVID pause, came back, played Virginia at home, and lost by 10 at home. So that's sort of a puzzling one there. They lost to St. Bonaventure in West Virginia and Charleston in some close games in the non-conference. Decent schedule, and I guess it's just more of what we're saying here, like just an average ACC team, so it should be another close game here. And the question is, can Syracuse finally win one of these close games? I know they won one against Florida State the first time, but last 4 losses have come by 5 points or less.
Right. They've played really, really close games, like you mentioned there. And I guess the one thing is they haven't necessarily been favored in a ton of these close games. So from an against the spread standpoint, it looks all right. But at the end of the day, like right now, you're looking at Syracuse, and it's a team that's below 500 right now. And we're in what now? Mid-January? Like we're not supposed to be here right now. No. You're not supposed to be below 500 ever for this program. And we kind of talk about the different program expectations, and that's where we're at right now. But again, this is a good Clemson 3-point shooting team. As good as Syracuse has been shooting the 3 ball, Clemson's actually been better. You look at some of the guys that can really pour it in from deep. Like they've got a couple guys that can hit from a better than 40% clip. When you look at guys like David Collins, Alamir Dawes, Hunter Tyson, they're all in the 40% club pretty much. And then a couple other guys that can splash it in too. So as good as Syracuse has been shooting the 3, I mean, this Clemson team has actually been better.
Yeah, they have been really good. And it's part of why I feel like it is sort of a tough matchup for Syracuse, but we'll dig into that in a little bit. Also do the prop shop, get you Dabundo's digits. First though, BetOnline would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the #1 spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. New year and a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today. and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code Locked On to get started. That's all one word, Locked On, for that 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. So Clemson, a team that, like we said, pretty mediocre, struggling a little bit of late, losing 3 of the last 4. We can dive into the prop shop now and update you guys on where things stand there. You had a pretty good week, Ty. You're catching up to me.
Did I? I always kind of like brace myself. I never know if I have a good week, bad week, and then we dive in on the next show and I kind of figure out where I'm at. But glad I'm doing a little better. I mean,
yeah,
I can't do worse. That's for damn sure.
4-2 for you in the last game. We both picked Syracuse to cover, and they did not. Of course, we both hit the under there, which hit by just a little bit. The over-under was 150 for that last game against Florida State. So you're up to 39-45. I'm 40-44, so just one game better than you record-wise, but doing better in terms of how much fake dollars I've lost, because I'm down 190, you're down 570 as we enter this week. And we start with what has become a regular sort of quietly here on the prop shop. Who will win the rebounding battle? I think I'm just going to do it until Syracuse loses the rebounding battle, because they did it again. Amazingly, 6-0 now in ACC play. I keep picking them to lose because odds feel like it can't just keep happening. But I mean, can you imagine if I would have told you, or I'll do the 30 for 30 voice.
Yeah.
What if I told you that, 6-7 weeks ago, Syracuse would be 6-0 in the ACC in rebounding March? I never would have guessed that they'd be doing that well rebounding and also 2-4 overall.
If you told me that 6 weeks ago, I would have guessed that Jesse Edwards would be averaging 12 boards a game.
Yeah, right?
Which could not be further from the truth.
Sense.
Like, it's sort of a group effort when you see, like, last game, I think 3 different guys had 7 or more rebounds in it. So it is a group effort. It's just sometimes it feels empty because it's a lot of offensive rebounds that end up without second chance points, and second chance, third chance, sometimes even fourth chance points. And when you're coming up empty to that degree, then it's sort of a moot point after of who wins the rebounding battle. But I'm with you, like, ride the trend till it's not a trend anymore. And it's not like Clemson does anything special on the boards per se. So I'll roll with Clemson here, or I'll roll with Syracuse here. I'm going to take Syracuse to keep the trend going here, to get to 7-0.
I'm at the point where I've continuously picked against Syracuse that if I don't do it and then it's the one time that it burns me, I'm just going to hate myself. So I think I'm going to take Clemson again here. They are 78th in the nation in rebound margin. 4.2 is their rebound margin cumulative on the year. So overall, they're pretty solid, and usually they're not that great of a rebounding team, but this year a little bit better. I think it says something, though, that Syracuse is 6-0 in the ACC in rebounding, and it really hasn't translated to wins or losses. Like, everyone was picking that as the key. And I tried to warn some people back in the non-conference that, yes, like, you'd like Syracuse to rebound well in a perfect world, but also I don't think it's good to say that's the key to the season when every Syracuse team has always been bad at rebounding, and we know it's never going to be quote unquote good, right? When you play a 2-3 zone.
It's never made the good teams, and it's never broken the bad teams. That's the way that it goes. Like, it's more the defensive stuff. And now, listen, there may be some games where it hurts you, and you may lose a game here or there because of it. But no, for the most part, it's really been especially this season, the defense that has hurt this team. Yeah.
All right, next up, we talked about it already, but Clemson, a good 3-point shooting team, will set their over-under for 3-pointers at 10.5. Pretty high number here, but they're averaging right around 8 per game. Then you go up against the 2-3 zone, more volume. They're shooting at 38.4% from 3. That's top 20 in the nation right now. I think they're going to go over. Florida State hit 12, and they're not a good 3-point shooting team. And like I've said a lot when we've done this prop, it's doesn't really matter how you're shooting the 3 or how you're trending going in. Teams have just been shooting it well against Syracuse this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to take the over of 10.5 here, just because, like, this is a team that, like you said, shoots the ball well from 3, but they don't take a lot. They're, like, right in the middle of the country in terms of 3-point attempts per field goal attempt. They're like smack dab in the middle. Honestly. Yeah. So they don't take a lot, but like you said, 2-3 zone, you're going to take a lot more in this game. So I think just the pure numbers here. I mean, would it shock you if this thing got up to like 13 or 14? No. So I'm gonna take Clemson.
Next up, Joe Girard will set his personal over-under at 12.5 points. And I think it's an interesting one because he's been struggling lately. And we were texting with Anthony Dabbundo this morning. We'll get to his Dabbundo's digits in a little bit, and maybe he'll even talk about this. But he's sort of had a shooting regression a bit. After starting the year like 51% from three, you knew that wasn't going to last. Last 3 games, he's 3 for 16 from three. And even keep in mind, like Wake, which was 3 games ago, he made his first 2 threes. So he's actually 1 for his last 14 in terms of in-game 3-point shots right now. It seems like water's kind of finding its level there. I'm going to take the under here, although Clemson's not a great D, so I could see him getting to 13 or 14 points.
Yeah, I mean, the regression, I mean, you can really stretch it back to a 6-game stretch. I mean, Miami game is sort of the outlier, but he has not shot the ball well from 3 in 5 of the last 6 games. Miami, he goes 7 of 12 from 3, but then he had 1 of 4 against Virginia, 1 of 5 against Cornell. So really, it's been a 6-game stretch that he's sort of struggled in, and he has the 7 against Miami, which makes it look a lot better. But I think this is sort of a bounce back spot for Joe Girard. We've been pretty good at picking the bounce back spots for both him, Buddy Boeheim, getting back on track. I think this is going to be one of those. And 12.5 isn't a ton to ask for either from a scoring standpoint. So I'll get Joe Girard to go over, but it may not be on the most efficient of shooting nights.
Yeah, he's averaging 13.4 points per game so far this season. All right, final one in the prop shop. We always do this until we pick the game, at least. The final of the prop bets is who will lead Syracuse in scoring. And we got Buddy minus 110, Girard plus 235, Jimmy plus 285. So if you put down 100 fake dollars, you'd win 285 fake dollars if you got it right. Swider plus 420, Jesse plus 550, other plus 1,000. It's going to be from one of the 5 starters. I can promise you that. I don't even know why we do the other at this point. It's not going to happen. We're just holding out hope for Benny Williams to maybe have that breakout game, but he's not even seeing the court lately. So I'll go with Buddy. I think.
Can we splash an extra one at the end of this on the Benny over under minutes?
Yeah, we can do one.
Yeah, we'll do that after. Okay, so you're going with Buddy here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Buddy. He somehow still led the team in scoring last week against a tough matchup against Florida State, and that was because guys like Jimmy didn't really step up. Cole had a decent start to the game, then sort of faded. I don't know. I just feel like Buddy's the safest bet, and anytime I go away from him, he seems to hit, so I'll take him again.
I'm going to try to hit a home run here.
Oh.
All right. I'm going to go with Jesse.
Wow.
I think this matchup actually sets up. I think Syracuse also sort of saw something. Don't be surprised if they go with more of that 3-guard lineup in this game, because this is not a very big Clemson team. PJ Hall only plays about 30 minutes a game for them as well. So, and he's their tallest guy at 6'10". No one else taller than 6'8" on this team. I wouldn't be surprised to see a 3-guard lineup. You try to get Samir and Jesse, or Buddy and Jesse, Joe and Jesse into some pick and roll situations. I think this is a real strong candidate to be an 18, 20-point performance out of Jesse Edwards. As long as he can stay on the floor, which obviously is the great equalizer in all of this. He could end up with 6 points because he gets himself into foul trouble. But I think he could certainly have a strong first half. We haven't seen foul trouble really plague him in the first 20 minutes of games. It's sort of been in the first 10 minutes of the second half that's really killed him. If he can stay out of foul trouble in that little area, even if he does get into foul trouble, I think, too, he could still lead the team in scoring. I think this is a good matchup for Jesse. So I'll go with Jesse at, what is it, plus 550 that you're going to give me on this? I think this could be a real candidate for Jesse to be the team's leading scorer.
Yeah, you take the lead on me. I think that's safe to say if you got that one to go, which I like it. I mean, Jesse's been more of a factor in the offense going forward, especially at the start of games and at the start of halves when they sort of drop some plays out of the breaks. It feels like Jim Boeheim is, more apt to actually get plays designed for Jesse Edwards.
And I'll say this, that end of game sequence too, I would have had no problem having Jesse be the guy to take that last shot because of the way that Florida State was playing with smaller guys out there. I think it's going to be similar here. And I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, maybe even a little over a month ago, how we were talking about who's sort of in the conversation to take a last shot for Syracuse. If it's a 1 or 2 point game, I've got no problem with it being Jesse Edwards. He has shown some poise to finish off some plays at the rim. Now, the problem would be if he gets fouled and goes to the free throw line, I feel a lot less confident in him going up there and trying to hit 2 free throws as I would it being Joe, Buddy, even Cole. I would feel very confident in all three of those guys to go up to the stripe and knock down 2. But if you're telling me I can get a clean look, like Jesse Edwards is right up there for guys I would want taking a final shot.
Yeah. Also, maybe a matchup of 2 of the candidates for most improved player in the ACC, Jesse Edwards, PJ Hall in this one.
Yeah.
That's just off the top of my head.
2 bigs, yeah.
I guess De'Aaron Sebron has really taken a leap, but he's going to be like an all ACC first teamer maybe. So I don't know how much that factors into his chances of most improved. All right, last prop shop one. We'll do it on the fly here. Benny Williams over under on minutes. What do you think? 5.5, 6.5?
I was thinking like 7.5, but I mean,
yeah,
I think he gets more run in this game.
I don't. I'm going to go over.
Like, not only will it go over, I think he could shatter it and like double it. Like it wouldn't shock me if he plays 15, even upwards of 20 minutes in a game like this. Like we've just seen the ebbs and flows. Like we've done it with Frank too. There have been games where Frank plays no minutes and then comes back and plays a big role in the next game. I mean, all of a sudden we see John Bull playing in certain games. Samir, we see 6 minutes one game and then we see 16 the next game. So I think 0 is always going to be inexcusable for any of these bench guys, but I do think that we will see an extended Benny run in this game. And I think he could do some good things in this game too, because they're going to need him defensively.
And offensively, I think he matches up pretty well. It scares me more when we go up against defensive-minded teams with him because he does struggle when he gets the ball in his hands. And Jim Boeheim said something today on the Monday conference call about Benny basically saying that he hasn't been good in practice and he hasn't been good in the games. And I don't necessarily disagree, but also he's got enough talent to warrant minutes in every single game. And especially the way you're going, and especially given the other talent that's on the roster. So we've talked about a good amount. But
yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying there. And listen, this could be one of those games where the matchup is sort of right for him. I think if he can, I'm not going to expect him to shoot over guys this year, even though he's going to have a height advantage on a lot of these guys on the opposing side for Clemson. I'm not going to ask him to shoot over guys because I think that's sort of a lost cause at this point. The shot's just not there. I think it is starting to get a little bit better form-wise, but
yeah,
he could definitely back his way down, maybe get some alley-oops too. I think we could see 1 or 2 Benny dunks in this game that makes, or like a couple offensive moves that make you feel like, okay, there's a little bit of positive momentum here.
Well, we will pick the game, give our score predictions and our keys to the game in just a little bit. But first, the return of Anthony Dabbundo and Dabbundo's digits.
The numbers you need to know. Anthony Dabbundo breaks down the biggest stats for this week's Syracuse matchup. Everybody! Dabbundo's digits.
If you ain't taking stats, kick the out the class.
On the Locked On Syracuse Podcast.
On the Stataholics, where you at? Let's go!
It's good to be back from vacation, and I'm just glad that Tyler and Tim haven't fired me from my weekly spot on this podcast yet. Syracuse's defense has now fallen outside of the top 200 in all 3 of the predictive metrics that I first look at, from KenPom to Bart Torvik to shot quality. The next opponent, though, isn't exactly an offensive juggernaut in Clemson. The one thing the Tigers have done really well this year is shoot the ball from 3. They've ranked 15th in the country with a 38.4% shooting rate from beyond the arc. Normally, that would be a major red flag for any team playing against the zone, especially this Syracuse zone, because Syracuse ranks in the bottom 50 in the country of percentage of open threes allowed. But there are some reasons to think that Clemson number is a bit of a mirage and that regression is coming for them offensively. Clemson ranks 257th in open three rate and just 85th in catch and shoot three-point shot quality. Compare this to last season, the Tigers were outside the top 100 in three-point shooting. That made a lot more sense when you look at the shooting profiles of their players. It doesn't seem to me that this current top 15 ranking is particularly sustainable, especially when you consider that they're not getting great looks and they're making a lot of difficult to make shots. So what does this Clemson offense do well? Well, they post up with high frequency and they are excellent at generating space and good shots off ball screens. However, those are 2 things that are relatively difficult to do against a set zone defense, even as one as bad as the Orange this year. Clemson does not play fast, so there's going to be a lot of time for the Syracuse defense to get the zone set up, and there's not a ton of easy ways for Clemson to attack this team in the interior. Clemson's offense has also really struggled when it's played against quality opponents this year. It's had 3 of its 4 worst performances of the season by Bart Torvik's game score metric in their last 4 games. Not a team trending in the right direction recently. The Tigers' main issue this year, though, has actually come on defense, where Clemson is typically much sturdier than than it's been this year. They're really struggling because they allow a ton of threes, and while they typically guard off the dribble shooters pretty well, they have a strong tendency to struggle with both ball screen defense and mid-range defense. It's unclear how Clemson will go after Buddy Boeheim defensively, but if the pass is any indicator, the typical Cuse off-ball double screens and getting Buddy going into mid-range should be accessible ways for the Orange to get some points here. And one more thing. Clemson is a snail. They like to play slow. It doesn't go for offensive rebounds too much, but the Tigers are poor in defensive transition. They rank 175th in defensive shot quality allowed in transition. Q should be able to push tempo, and they should do it as much as possible to get better looks from three and expose the Tigers. If I sound more optimistic than usual about this team, it's because I am, at least surrounding this game. So hopefully my return to the pod means a return to winning for the Orange. I don't count wins at home against Pittsburgh. And one more thing, the two best publicly available trackers of random variance, both KenPom's luck rating and Bart Torvik's fun rating, failure unexplained by numbers, suggest that Syracuse has been one of the unluckiest teams in the country when you compare record to actual performance over 40 minutes of said games. Could some close game variance be coming and swinging the Orange's way? I certainly think that could be in the cards.
All right, thanks to Anthony Dabbundo. As always, you can find his work over on Twitter and at the Action Network, his Twitter page at Anthony Dabbundo. Give him a follow over there. He's usually tweeting some of his takes on Syracuse throughout the game. And
NFL.
Most of them I agree with.
Oh, he's had so many sad NFL tweets lately. I mean, all his teams are losing. He's from Philly. Eagles got pounded. He's a Colts fan. Colts had an embarrassment in week 18. He's been fueling up the Raiders' fire the entire season. They lose a clunker. It's been a rough NFL season fandom-wise. He's been pretty good gambling-wise, I think, on the NFL. But from a fandom standpoint, it has been, my goodness.
Yeah, well, we always appreciate his work there, and we will get into picking the game in just a little bit, but it's the new year, so that means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, maybe even better than a candy bar, and it makes it easier to stick to your resolutions because Built Bars taste so good, you'll actually want to eat it, unlike the other protein bars, which can be chalky or waxy or taste like a chemical spill. And you want to eat healthy. Sometimes you get into that mood, but then by like week 3 of the New Year's resolution, I know I'm guilty of this. You might be thinking, this just isn't worth it. Where's the chocolate? Well, Built Bars is the perfect thing because Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, and they're somehow good for you as well. They are one of our favorites here on the podcast. Tyler and I are always dipping into the Built Bar. So you can go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, get 15% off your order. Again, that is promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com to get those Built Bars. So KenPom projecting a 2-point win, pretty similar to the Florida State projection that Syracuse did not hit. We have not gotten our line from our friends over at BetOnline.ag yet, but usually pretty around that is their lines and the KenPom numbers there. 78-76 is what KenPom is saying for this one. I keep saying it, and I almost feel like I need to apologize to the fan base a little bit for getting the hopes up maybe, because I keep saying that this is the game where they win and then they get on a little bit of a run here. And I'm not going to quite give up hope yet, but I will say this is one of those games that if they don't win this one, I might just totally change my philosophy on this season, because it does feel like Clemson's not playing well and Syracuse is due for a win and Syracuse is at home. So I feel confident picking them to win this individual game. But at the same time, I keep going back to this is the Syracuse win and they're due for a win and it's not coming. So I don't know how much more I can keep going back to that.
Yeah, I look at it as very similarly to you. Like, I think neutral site and you take past performances out of the equation, I'm taking Clemson. Actually, even the game could be played at Syracuse and I'm still taking Clemson. But past performance right now, I mean, this is a wildly inefficient offense that Clemson is running too. Like, I know the numbers maybe suggest a little bit better, but 3 of their last 4 games, they're averaging less than 1 point per possession. Syracuse is north of 1 point per possession in 7 of their last 8 games. So offensively, this is a team where, okay, Syracuse runs the much better offense as opposed to Clemson. And it makes me think that Syracuse can have a chance to win this game, but the way things are trending right now, like Clemson is just way down. Syracuse, even though it hasn't led to wins, they're at least playing solid basketball. Clemson has not played solid basketball through their last 4, pretty much since they've come out of the COVID pause. They have not played well. And I want to pick Clemson really bad in this game, but I just think that the spot sort of matches up for Syracuse. I know we said the Florida State game was a spot game that matched up well for Syracuse, and like they kind of had it at points throughout and should have probably won that game.
That's every game. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think that this Clemson team is nearly as good as Florida State. I don't think they're nearly as physical as Florida State. So I'll roll with Syracuse as this can be one of those games that they actually do finally pull out in a close fashion. I do think it'll be close, though.
Yeah, I mean, all factors say it's close, and that's been all the games so far. Part of me thinks they might win this game by 8 or 10 points, just because I do think Clemson is not as good as Syracuse. But I say that knowing that I'm not that high on Syracuse. Like, Syracuse is a bad basketball team. I think I still believe that their record is a little bit worse than it should be right now, especially when you're coming off, 4 losses in your last 5 games that have all been decided by 1 or 2 possessions. Like, usually you're due for a trend back in the other direction, but as much as you can get on Clemson for some of these bad losses, Syracuse, I think it's a stretch to say they've been playing solid over the last 5 games. It felt that way. And then Florida State, that was the one to me where I was like, all right, if you're really trending in the right direction, that's where you pick up the win at home, and they just didn't do it. So now I'm sort of lost.
Yeah, it's because it's come down to a couple possessions. And in those final possessions, Syracuse has looked putrid. They have looked putrid in late game execution. And I know Jim Boeheim says otherwise. My eyes tell me what my eyes tell me. They have not looked good executing down the stretch against some of these teams, whether it be missed free throws, not inbounding the basketball, all that stuff.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of things that losing basketball teams do that Syracuse is doing right now. But it feels like when you take the 39-minute arc of some of their games, they look good. But there's a minute of really bad basketball sandwiched in there or smushed all the way at the end that kills this team. Absolutely kills this team. It's been low IQ stuff like bad fouls, like we've talked about with Joe and Jesse. There's just been a lot of stuff that has been low IQ and bad basketball team traits. And listen, I'm not saying Clemson is Duke on the other end, because they're far from it. They've also played really bad basketball as of late too, and they're not performing on the one side of the ball that they're supposed to be better at right now. So I'll roll with Syracuse, but I'm not taking it with a high degree of confidence for certain.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'll take Syracuse as well. I'll take the over, I guess, because I think both the defenses are pretty weak and they have some familiarity against both of these teams. They both can shoot it from 3, which might be not a huge game in terms of number of possessions, but when you're getting up a good amount of threes and both teams aren't great at defending the 3, I think that favors the over. I will add, sort of surprising, but Clemson is actually leading the all-time series against Syracuse 7-5, despite Syracuse winning the last game, which came on March 3rd last year. They played 2 times last year. They split the meetings and the home team won both. And that March 3rd win was a big win. Fans might remember for sort of adding to their tournament resume down the stretch. Alan Griffin had a good game, which is sort of surprising. 22 points, 10 rebounds, and then he was kind of never to be heard of from, again, when he went into the NCAA tournament. But 3-3 in the last 6 in this series, and the home team has won the last 6
I was just going to say,
so
it feels like this is a series where the home team wins a lot, and you just had the numbers there to back it up. Like, I remember 2018, Syracuse went up against a ranked Clemson team in the Dome. It was another one of those March games, kind of a had to have it.
Yeah.
And they got it. And it was a very ugly, low-scoring game. I remember that. It was fun.
55-52.
I think Lawrence Moten got his number retired, and it was the great irony that the all-time leading scorer got his number retired. And what do you know? It was the ugliest of offensive games that you could have imagined out of the 2 teams. But from a 154 standpoint, if that's the number you're setting it at, I think it'll still be high scoring, but I'm probably going to lean under slightly. I think it'll bounce in the neighborhood of like 145 to 150, but which is still a high scoring game. But 154 is a little rich for my blood right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it for our preview podcast. Another must-win game for the Orange.
They're like cats, man. They get 9 of these. They get 9 must-win games. What do we?
It's every year, but this year in particular, it might be 20 must-win games by the end of the year. We always joke that when's the first must-win game? Is it November 15th or It feels like it gets earlier and earlier.
You want to hash this out real quick? Here, let me look through. I feel like Indiana was a must-win game.
Yeah, I mean, all those after
Florida State was a
battle for
must-win
Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I don't think Villanova was. I wouldn't go so far as to say that was a must-win. Georgetown, I wouldn't say was
absolutely.
You would say it was a must-win? I guess.
I mean, it's Georgetown. That when they lost that game, that's when I knew they just had really no shot of making the tournament.
I guess. Yeah. No. Yeah. Actually. Yeah. You're probably right there. Virginia, I wouldn't have said as must-win, but it would be nice to have in the bank. But Florida State, Pitt, Wake, Miami. Maybe not Miami.
So
what is that? Like
it's kind of every game from here on out.
Now. Yeah. Now. Yeah. Except for Duke. Well, I guess
Duke's the next game. So
Duke's you kind of have to have to erase some of these losses. So
right. Yeah, but we will get you guys ready for Duke later on in the week. We'll have your recap podcast tomorrow on our Wednesday podcast, breaking down this one. Might be Wednesday morning it's out because it is a late game on Tuesday night. But enjoy the game, everyone. Follow our Twitter at @LO_Syracuse. We'll have some live updates and thoughts throughout the game on that. You can also tweet us your thoughts after the game. Usually we get to some of those on our recap podcast, and we will talk to you guys